When I saw the ruling, I said neutrality may be misapplied. We can still take a look at it and see. Anonymity.
Basically introduced on us the dimension about misunderstanding of language leading to misapplication and the consequence of chaos being created. We'll come to that. I think you're opening a school for us this morning. But we are delving into the topic, the role of labor unions in ensuring neutral, anonymous, and permanence of the civil. Dr. Wapado, from the labor perspective, do you think this principle is critical for the functioning of the service?
Thank you. As a labor, our main objective is to ensure that and to promote the interests of members in terms of economic and social aspects. Now, if this issue of preserving the integrity of the civil service, now we are talking of the civil service, which is part of the public service. We are not talking of the public services in general. It's for the civil service. And it started in 1949, 1st October, when the Democrats started establishing political parties. We had GCC, we had the CPP as at that time. And the governor introduced the general orders to that effect that if you want to any of these political parties, then you must resign of the service. When we go through, when we came to all the stakeholder associations, their objective was to put the integrity of the service. Then we came to the 1992 Constitution, where it was there that if you're a civil servant, you cannot be a member of parliament. That's where the 1992 Constitution, there was a limitation that it gave to us. Now, the head of service of the civil service local government segment with code of ethics that's prevented our members even partaking in level elections. Any form of political activity, they were debarred from taking part. First, that was too far. So as an association, we told our members that for district level elections, we all know it's non-partisan.
Yeah.
But our understanding, what the Supreme Court said is that if you are a civil servant, you can be a member of parliament. So as for district level elections, it was not mentioned. So they should go. They should get themselves involved in the district level elections. And they went. We told them we have our lawyer. Anybody tries to disturb them, we're going to finish them out. So most of them went and they won. Other issue that came up was that when do you resign as a civil servant if you want to be a member of parliament? Our position was that you only become a member of parliament when you are sworn. Even when you are a parliamentary candidate elect, you are not a member of parliament. There were documents written by RCS and Co. And then who were saying that the moment your political calling become overt, then you must resign. I recall the case of Alhaji Jawula, where the then head of civil service asked to resign or free disciplinary action for being on the board of a political party. But we as a association, we were not in agreement with that action, because what we said was that in the Constitution, what it limited us from being members of parliament. So, to us, you can be on a political platform, you can partake in primaries. It's only when you are being sworn in as a member of parliament, that's when you have to resign. And we're encouraging our people. But we said, look, confusion up and down, why don't we for Supreme Court for interpretation? Because we're running battles with the authorities, especially the heads of the services. This is not what they call it. And so we went to the Supreme Court. We went to the Supreme Court. And the judges ruled that the servant must owe his appointment to partisan activities.
So what you mean generally is that the moment you overtly join a political party or perceive to have joined a political party, not even when you have contested, then it means that you don't have a place in the civil service, isn't
It's
it?
even go further than that. It's saying your calling becomes overt. So, for instance, if I come out and I'm wearing a party T-shirt, it's become overt service. That's the ruling.
So maybe Mr. Gami can come in here. Dr. Mampabo kept mentioning the integrity of the civil service, which derives authority from the principles of anonymity, neutrality, and purpose. How do you perceive the effect of political infiltration into this? What do you call it? What is perceived would have on the integrity of the service?
This is an interesting thing going on in Ghana here. I was in Japan to study, and later, when we were writing the labor law, and we got to Japan again, myself and the team, we went to the head of the civil service in Japan. They don't, when it's about 3-month session, the chief directors, which is like permanent secretary, those days, they have the political office holders, let's say the minister for finance, hand over to the chief director of ministry of finance. You have no right to participate in political office. And that is to give the permanency a place now. The city of activities of the public service, the civil service, and whatnot is to be given attention and focus. And so they do not want political office holders spending money to be giving instructions and leading people when they are participating in extensive kind of political activities. So they have to, but we all learned it there. We were there. I've studied in Japan many times. And so when they told us, I said, wow, this is very interesting. So it got to a time in Ghana when passed a law and saying that there come a time when political office holders will have to write their 6 months to election and hand it over to an administrator. In effect, they are trying to switch them away, but because of the kind of stonewall attitude we have in Ghana here, are even campaigning vigorously, still come to office and group people in the public and civil service and so forth and so on. I'm in agreement that this issue of ensuring and the protection of the integrity is not negotiable. Okay? Integrity is not negotiable. Integrity is not about political holders. I don't even see the integrity. But we are talking about the integrity of a system that is in place to protect the interest of the people of the country. Being infiltrated by excessive, we all have some political. I think politics simply means making decisions on behalf of people. But partisan politics is what the issue is about now. If it's everybody is involved in politics, in your house, you and your wife and children, you are involved in politics. This I restate, it's about making decisions on behalf. But when it comes to partisan, the NDC, the MPP, the KGB, those are the things I'm sure the Supreme Court was mindful about talking. So the integrity of the civil service, the public will be protected to continue to render services to the people in general. I think this is the intent behind it.
Okay, thank you. So currently, Doctor, the cluster is on strike, and I'm sure one of the tools you are using to protect the integrity of the civil service. But then possibly, it appears there are some people who are not in agreement. Basically, you could deduce that from the fact that maybe they do not understand the ruling of the court or did not know the outcome of the judgment. I realize that you saw 15 reliefs. Can you paraphrase, walk us through some of the takeaways from the Supreme Court judgments?
Yeah, I want to quote, I don't want to speak from my mind,
okay.
what the judges said.
Okay.
And it said, the object of the service is to assist government in the formulation and implementation of...
So sure that you are reading from the Supreme Court judgment,
yeah,
and not something you have created.
No.
If you reference the...
Monitor, coordinate, and government policies and plans. And this is what they say. It is clear from the foregoing functions that a large sense of apparent political anonymity or neutrality is required in all the civil service to function satisfactorily and effectively as part of national government machinery. To be effective for civil servants in Ghana, no matter the level of operation, requires some attention of efficiency, discretion, loyalty, and public trust. And this is the part that I like. He said, at this stage of our socio-political development, all this is all about Ghana, the development of Ghana, not about it's about Ghana. At this stage of our political development, when political discourse in all issues and rivalry can easily trigger a whole range of reactions, even violence. He said even violence is unhealthy to continental civil and local government servants who proclaim their partisan leanings in the public space. This is what the Supreme judges said. So it's at the public perception. And he said it can bring violence. We all saw what happened when there was this change of government. There was so much violence. Our members were thrown out of the office. The doors were locked. This is seen by the judges. And he said, because why? Because Goro boys and parachicks or partisan people can see their colleagues there. Of their colleagues, who they know are partisan, have found themselves in our midst. So they are attacking the offices. Because if you are all in a political party activist, you have found yourself in a civil service institution, and then you are doing it. Of course, yes, then get out. Now end. Me too, I'm come to work there. So it's the public person. And if we don't control this, in the civil service of these Goro boys and apparatchiks, it is the development of going to suffer. Thank you.
Maybe
Okay.
What Dr. Bampo said is the real issue at stake. When I was coming to work at the Ministry of Employment, I came with my daughter and one other person. When I was leaving, I took them away. They never stayed behind even a day. Now, when I was present in the ministry, I saw people who were working with the civil service and they were partisan. Okay? But they didn't make so obvious and disrupt business and flow of the ministry. So I did not take any serious view of it. People I know are overly partisan in Ghana here, and therefore they read everything into it. But like I said, I took my driver away, my other helper away. But I'm carefully to the leadership of CLOSAC before in respect of this matter that has cropped up. They have a very genuine point that has to be. However, I want to bring to your attention the constitutional. We have a fine balance.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure 193. 1, which the president shall, acting in accordance with this, the advice of the Public Services Commission, appoint a public officer as the head of the civil service. So the appointing authority of the head of civil service and the civil service in general is actually deposited in the presidency. That is what the Constitution says in Article 131. And it goes further to say that subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the head of the civil service shall not hold any other public office. So, like I said, we must have a fine balance.
Mr. Gami, I want to come in because you've introduced the Article 193. But then, if you look at the 195, under the subheading Appointments of Public Officers, I think that vested authority is conditioned on certain basis. But the Constitution says that subject to the provisions of this Constitution, power to appoint persons hold or to act in an office in the public services shall vest in the President. But 1, acting in accordance advice of the governing council of the service concerned. 1 and 2, given in consultation with the public commission. So that appointing authority is not a blanket check.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think we must be able to situate what do you call it?
Yeah,
authority.
As I rightly said,
appropriate.
As I rightly said, the president acting on advice of. So yes, it's contingent on that. So that's why I said, can we have a fine line, sure, that the steps we are taking are really predicated in law and best practice, and commission have been pruned down into laws and policies. Now, any policy, whether of the civil service or the service at large, that is inconsistent with the Constitution and the parent law will have to be amended.
But then also you realize that even in the Supreme Court's ruling, bearing in mind the authority vested president to appoint, has also given some clarity with regards to the anonymity, the neutrality, and permanent of the service.
Yeah.
And so I think we cannot look at these parts, but we must look at them in whole. Yeah. What's your opinion about that?
No, I agree 100%. That's why anything that is inconsistent, because Supreme Court ruling, indeed, from the High Court, Appeals Court to the Supreme Court, especially the Supreme Court, these are part and parcel of our laws. So you cannot divorce yourself out of. That said, we have to lift the ruling, this land ruling, and deposit it in both the Constitution and the laws of Ghana and see whether it hooked where appropriate. And let me be very frontal with you. I strongly hold the view that people who are employed in the public service and the civil service must attain high level of impartiality, neutrality, amity. You know, why do we swear oath of allegiance and secrecy? Have sworn it also. So clearly, what it is that I don't think people are debating this even itself. What I heard being said is that, look, appointing authority is vested in the president, and there's no fighting that. But the Bampo is not fighting that. He's saying that yes, you can, but make sure that we don't have who are operating as political office holders. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
If there's anything contrary, but let's have some clarity. If you take Section 8 of the Labour Act, it will tell you that the person who should appoint, clearly the rights of it's a subject to so and so and so and so. The employer is the only person authorized to employ a worker. You as an individual, me as an individual, you, president, or the president in his assign in him that employ a worker and assign the worker, transfer the worker, promote the worker, and so forth and so on. Then when it comes down to the nitty-gritties, we have a collective agreement, which you also have. It tells how, when promotion is going to be done, it to be initiated. You will see that we didn't talk about employment in the collective agreement because it's not the business of the union or the business of any other to employ. But when it comes to promotion, we said we want to have it as to you are the one to promote, but the process you want to have a say. So you see it in the collective agreement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gambi. But we'll come, Dr. Mampadu, you went to court in 2017. Sorry, before 2017 or in 2017, 2016, 2017, you got pronouncements from 2017 till 2025. Why are we still, caught with this kind of political influence? Is it that the Labour Union have failed or have not been able to live up to expectations? Why is this appointment things?
Well, you see, let's get this thing very clear. A civil servant has the right to belong to a party. It is their open manifestation that is a problem. And I mean, I want to read parts of the judgment on that too. It said, look, whilst membership of a party is their right, the open manifestation of short leanings cannot do well for a neutral way, and demonstrably assure of transparency and anonymity and neutrality in decision making or execution of functions. Otherwise, public perception. So it's not about the individual. It's about the public. It's a public perception of political corruption in all its forms, including nepotism, abuse of position, lack of accountability, will endanger, thereby weakening the effectiveness of these government services. So this is what it is, the public perception. How is it? No, you can be doing your work all right. How is the public perceiving you? How would the public perceive somebody who is a noted activist of a political party? See him going for services and see the person sitting over there. How would the public perceive that person? That is what the Supreme Court is talking about. Now, as a labor union, we've not sat down quite like I said earlier. We send this matter to the Supreme Court for interpretation. And why? Because we had occasion, unless you're not in Ghana for the last 8 years, we've blown our horn that Kenofriata has filled Minister of Finance with Aratis and Goro boys. We cited other civil service institutions. In fact, at the time, when by the then president, His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, taught me, he said, Bampuado, come, let's talk about this thing. We explained it to him. But this is an issue. He said, okay, call the Minister for Employment. As at that time, Honorable Bafo, look, go and solve this problem. The first meeting was the last meeting. When there was a change of government, even before the change of government came, in our year address for the coming year 2025, we said it. Look, we'll be speaking about this thing, but this year, 2025, we will resist any attempt. Why? Because as civil servants, you must be conversant with the manifestos of the party in power. In the manifesto of the NDC, it said they were going to reset Ghana. So we saw it as part of the resetting agenda. They reset the civil service. We are going to ensure that the principles of anonymity, neutrality, and permanence are here to be enshrined. We didn't leave it there. We were the first group. That meant with the national security. It was led by Professor Totobi Kwachi was there. Kofi Boachi was there. We met there. We told them these issues. We have meetings in this year with the head of service, both local and civil service, on these same issues. We've had meetings with the chief of staff on these same issues. Look, if we want Ghana to develop as a nation, let's purge it of political people who have found themselves into the service. So these are the things that we do. Doctor, and so it was a big surprise to us when upon all this that we've done, because we had meetings upon meetings with this new government on the same issue. So it's not about Mr. Butchie, best and less. We don't know him. I don't know him. It's not about him. It's our system to ensure that Ghana is better off. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Doc. We'll be going for a commercial break, but when we come back, I would want you to address this issue that appears to be like a canker, because a press statement of the press secretary to the president, he referenced the fact that he is aware that the immediate registrar was the government appointee, and that the case is still in. The court has not pronounced it, basically affirming to the precedents. I want us to look at whether it is labor union that has not beaten enough to ensure that political government stay clear of civil service posts, or it is just a matter of say your say, I'll do my do. Viewers, stay put. We shall be back in a jiffy. Thank you. of labor unions in ensuring a neutral, anonymous, and permanent service. Doc, we wanted to know, with all the you have put in, not taking the law into hands, going to Supreme Court to seek interpretation, all in the interest of the civil service and the responsibility of the civil service to government and the nation. Why has this political infiltration to the civil service posts become a norm?
Yeah, let's make this very clear. We are not saying the president has not got the right to appoint. No, that's not what we are saying. We are all to uphold the Constitution of Ghana. And what the Constitution is saying is that yes, you should appoint, but you should not identify the person. Given the responsibility of identify the right person to you. Mr. President, this is our advice that this person is best fitted to be the registrar of net. That is what the Constitution is saying. It said the president appoints in accordance with the advice. So it is not the responsibility of the president to identify the person. It's the responsibility of the councils in collaboration with the Public Services Commission. Now, ask ourselves. We don't have a council. So who identified this person? Send it to the president to appoint. And this is the point that Honorable Felix Ofukwakye made. Who identified Bocho? Now, in the civil service, we have schemes for every class. There are certain categories, positions that there is no direct entry. It's promotion within. It's a progressive post. Everybody is aspiring, best and next class. Everybody is aspiring to be the registrar. That's the motivation. Now, if somebody is being brought in as a direct entry, contrary to the rules and regulations in the civil service, on top of you yourself, what would you do to the employees at the civil service? The second point that you should take note of, the Supreme Court ruling said, no civil servants must owe or seem to owe its appointment or promotion to partisan actors. So the moment the president, who is not supposed to identify the person, identifies that, put the person there, he has factored it. Yeah, because it's partisan. That person is owing his appointment to it. He has identified that person, which per the ruling is not supposed to be so. That is what we are talking about. Somebody must identify the person who is supposed to be the register of births and deaths based upon the rules and in the civil service, and then present it to Mr. President. This is the person we have identified to the register of births, then the president appoints. This is what the Constitution is saying. Thank you.
Mr. Gami, you have worn the shoes of a politician, and currently you are an astute consultant as far as labor issues are concerned. Historically, how have you perceived political influence? How has that influenced promotions, appointments to the service?
Honestly, it has always and will forever remain with us, so long as we remain in this body. But I think that we must minimize as much as possible the effect of partisan political activities in some of the areas. I don't think we are fighting, in this case, for the sake of it. Indeed, I have said, and it's on record, on this matter a number of times, that look, this is a genuine registered trade union body that is trying to protect the interests of their members, because when you take the case of two areas, one, if it is of NIA, National Identification Authority, it's a purely civil service institution. Professor Tefa is a known political figure, and he was there overseeing such a gargantuan project that could damage people's life, because this card means a lot to everybody. Now, but when it comes to birth and registry, I said on air, both television and everything, look, this is a career path, and that is the reason why they are saying what they are saying. So people should together and take a look at it. I hold the same view today also. So, but I'm saying that we can still have people who have political interest and are in these offices. What I don't want to virtually agree with is about until the fellow is sworn in and becomes a member of parliament, then that's what I don't see my way clear about.
But I'm sure the Supreme Court judgment has cleared those
credit.
That's why I said it was 7-0 against us.
So now it is about perception.
It was
perception of the fact that
the moment your is over, it's known, get out of the service.
Okay,
that's what it's.
I'm happy. I'm happy. Then I'm saying the same thing. So in effect, perception is a terrible thing. A negative perception, positive perception, it can lead us into violence. It can lead us into anything. And a lot of the things that are working against the system is all about perception. I want to say that where we've got into, this matter can be resolved sitting down and having a conversation on the concerns raised by COSAG and the concerns being raised by let's say, government. And we look at it and see where something ought to be. Originally, I thought I saw a letter or an instruction that this fellow is being reassigned. That's what I heard. Then the following or 3 days after, in fact, he even came out, held a press conference and thanked the government for taking that. When we are done, I can tell you where some of the things came from, But the long and short is that I think that we should pursue the area of engagement to resolve the little thing in the fire. We can remove that wood, and this thing will not come again. But sufficing to say that these things be deposited both. Unfortunately, our labor law is not the traditional adversarial law. Our labor is very, very fluid and open to helping each other. It says that when there is a situation, get together and talk about it. I think that we can still talk about it. I see wisdom in an aspect of the concern they raise. I see concern being raised by employer as well. That look, I'm the employer. Are we saying that the president can identify somebody? But when even you identify somebody, you identify him, submit it to the council. Let the council examine and see whether you are fit for purpose. Then Public Services Commission may go through a certain process and write a report, and that ends the matter. Because that's why I said there's a need to sit down and talk at it. But if the guy in question is totally embroiled in a partisan situation, at that meeting too, you can bring certain these things to because it's not everybody that have been appointed so far that has direct relationship with NC.
So Mr. Gami, I want to come again. if this attitude of appointing or promoting politically exposed persons into service posts continues, what do you perceive could be the challenges that might confront the career advancement of a typical civil servant? Is there hope?
Well, I'm happy you are having this program and your members are listening. If you take the labor law again, for your information, you have a condition of service, you have a collective agreement. Collective agreement supersedes even the law. Let me read it to you. According to section 1054, section 1054, when you have a collective agreement, and I would like the closer to pursue it properly, let's sit down and talk about it. It says this: the right conferred on a worker by a collective agreement shall not be waived by the worker, and if there is any conflict between the terms of a collective agreement and the terms of any contract not contained in the collective agreement, the collective agreement shall fail, unless the terms of the contract are more favorable to the worker. In effect, it's trying to tell you.
Just a moment.
Yes.
The rights of a worker under the collective agreement includes progression.
That's what I'm trying to drive at.
So, if the vacancy that might have been established, that would elicit, or what do you call it?
Bring about progression.
Bring about progression. It's sealed by a politically exposed person. What would have happened to the career of the civil servant?
Even in this conversation, that's why I'm using this kind of words. In this conversation, not a debate, not an argument, I would want to even put aside this socio-political whatever. The CLOSAG is a registered trade union body, dutifully went and negotiated for and on behalf of its members. And to them, the collective agreement is being truncated because it's a career path in the birth and death registry. And they want their members as much as possible to progress to the highest body. Now this 1054 is being truncated. And therefore, we must make a case. When I say the CLOSAG must make a case, that's why I was calling on air saying that, look, can we forget about the strike? Can we sit down and talk about it? And sometimes you must use facilitators or mediators to assist you resolve your matters. But that's what the law also says, that any matter of yours in situations like this should be resolved under Section 108. You go to a process and you resolve it as quickly as possible. And when it comes to that portion, the employer, being even the president, is as vulnerable as you are vulnerable. Both of you are on the same pedestal, and the dictator is an impartial, completely impartial person, using rules, under the law. There are several things under the law you can use in this particular matter to resolve the matter as quickly as 2 hours. It can be done. The law is clear. What I've just read to you is a testament that the law says the collective agreement that you have signed between you and the employer is as powerful over and above even this law, because you have voluntarily sat and agreed and wrote that thing yourself without coercion. So nobody, therefore, will use coercion in applying the same law. So you are on the right path, except that the law again says that during the course of these concerns, they don't be on strike. Come and sit down and talk. And that one, I'm for it. If we sit here now, will come with rules, And the same law again says that write your own rule that will guide you in this conversation. And it might be there to help you people to do it. I don't see any problem.
Doctor, I want to come to you here. As of now, there are certain things we are unable to establish. One is that Article 195 of the Constitution was not fully complied with as far as this appointment of the registrar is concerned.
Yeah.
Two, the pronouncements of the Supreme Court were also more or less disregarded.
Not fully adhered.
Not fully adhered to. Three, the conditions, the bargaining certificate or the conditions of, what do you call it?
Collective agreement.
Collective agreement has also been undermined. Four, our labor expert of the government is also saying that under the circumstance, we are not supposed to go on strike. What do you perceive to be the way forward? How do we resolve this issue then?
Let me start this issue. Let me correct this thing. You know, what the Supreme Court said, that no civil servant must or be seen to owe appointment or promotion to partisan activity. So the moment the president identifies anybody, what would the public perceive that to be? It's because of partisan activity. That's why everyone knows the president belongs. And this is what the Supreme Court is saying. So the president even identifying is wrong. Now, to your question. Like I said, we went to court. Yes, there was a dispute. But now, I think we've even gone far than this coffee bargaining. There was a labor. We didn't go to we went to the highest court of the land, Supreme Court, that settled this matter. And the Supreme Court was very clear that civil servants, the moment your coloring becomes overt, leave the service. Number two, the employer, but this is the bad part, the employer, our employer, have dismissed our members. You see the Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court ruling says people should not do politics. They've been dismissed. So, what is the meaning? They are implementing the Supreme Court ruling. But in a harsh manner. When it comes to them, that one here, no matter. Oh, it's perceived that for us, there are. It's abuse of power. We can do it. But you dismiss our members for flouting the Supreme Court ruling. They are dismissed. A lot of them. We are open for dialogue. We are not, because we know, clear, even the party chairman did arbiter, because we are very sure of this case. Because implementation has begun. We have petitioned the minister since 25th of February. If I call us, well, I'm a new minister, I've come, the issue should not be issue. We've petitioned him. We are not receiving a response. What the Labour Act says, 651, it says that when the parties refuse to refer data for voluntary arbitration, but that's what it's saying, then I have a right to notify my employer and the commission that I will be embarking on a strike. And within 7 days, I can go on my strike, which we did. But the gap here is that we notified our employer that this is what is happening, and we cannot countenance it anymore. So on this, we are going on strike.
Okay, so Doc, I want you to continue from here. We have seen the impact of such appointments, how it impacts negatively on progression. So
progression. Look at what has happened to the economy. We We spoke, we said, look, what is happening at Ministry of Finance, let's stop it. For 8 years, we shouting, nobody listens to us. What is it? Look at the bad economic situation we find ourselves. It's not private finance, it's public finance.
Well,
we shouted.
I wanted to look
this
at
is
it
the time that public opinion should come in. It should not be our fight. We are fighting for the development of Ghana. And this should not be only the fight of Closac. Civil society should come in. If we want Ghana to develop and have commitment that Ghana should develop, then civil society should also add their voice to this fight.
Yeah, I was looking at, I think this...
And let me say, we are open for dialogue anytime.
Dialogue, okay.
If the government says, come, let's sit down, let's talk.
We don't have a problem. I would even like you to call it employer. Government connotes politics, partisan politics. They go to parliament to go and make law. But they are also an employer. In fact, they wear two hats. They are employer, they are government. Now, you work with them as employer. So, and the law we didn't have anything to do with government directly. Now, but we haven't gotten to the place where you mentioned about voluntary arbitration under 157. I'm here. Let me just say it this way. We got to a place where in this matter, it's about enforcement. Because the law, the Supreme Court already has ruled.
Yeah.
So it's enforcement of that ruling.
Which has even started because they are dismissing our people.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So, in effect, it's a stage of negotiating the enforcement with the employer, or going for a facilitator to facilitate a mediate between the two of you to resolve the matter. But if you go for voluntary arbitration, I know some lawyers have misled people about it, but voluntary arbitration is arbitration. When arbitrator rules in this matter, it's like going to Supreme Court, because arbitration is like going to Supreme Court. It will vary the whole thing. So my suggestion, this is a facilitated mediation issue that, like you rightly said, and I agree with him, is about engaging in a dialogue to fine-tune how this process should have been initiated, should have been allowed to flow. It's like you are withdrawing of people perceived to be political people, so you also, that's the point he's been raising all this while. So I'm trying to say that let's get somebody, if it's not me, if it's not you, somebody to sit with you people and facilitate the process of resolving the matter between you and the employer. And when I said you shouldn't be on strike, is because the law says, under 161, 1 and 2, that during the course of this process, one should not be on strike. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Gami, I want to find out from you, are the judgments or pronouncements of the Supreme Courts negotiable?
When it comes to implementation, not about negotiation in the sense of negotiation, but in implementing anything, you still have to ensure that there's a process to make it workable and bring about equity. You know, for instance, the case of birth and death registry is very clear that, and I have said it on air, that look, these people are not talking about don't appoint people, but they are talking about they want a career path in that particular place. They're not talking about everywhere. I haven't heard them talking about everywhere in the civil service or public service. In fact, the head of civil service is appointed by the president. If today he is to appoint somebody today as a civil service, is the president. It won't be Closac. It won't be any other person. It will be the president. Okay. So the political aspect, that's why the thing is negotiable, to ensure that the fine lines are cleared so that nobody will feel embittered. The truth is that the president still reserves the authority to appoint the head of civil service, who is loyal and will swear to him. Let me put it that way. In effect, he will have a say in the system. But there are certain areas within the civil service and even public service that people must grow in the system, because you cannot be stagnant until you retire.
So
you still have a say. The president still have a say in appointing people into certain offices, such as the head of civil service. The Constitution gives him that authority.
I'm sure those are not in contention.
Exactly.
But the question that I want to ask is that, is it that the Supreme Court judgment in itself is inadequate?
Not just inadequate. There's ought to be some level of clarity still. And I've discussed that with some of them just last week. But look, there must be clarity in this. Anything you are doing, if it is not clear enough to be left open to abuse.
Because, you see,
there's not much clarity in it.
If you look at what occasioned this case, it was the CLOSAC trying to seek interpretation. Interpretations are to give clarity to substance.
Exactly.
And so I'm still wondering why our Supreme Court judgment ruling we need to put in mechanism to, negotiate implementation or set implementation processes in place. I believe that this is English language and it's straightforward.
It's not entirely clear. To be honest with you, if you talk about anonymity is about namelessness, okay? It's about obscurity. It's about you are operating in obscurity. It's about operating in a namelessness kind of situation. So we must avoid some of the things. They should have brought some level of clarity to bear on this. The only thing that is clear in this omnibus ruling is about people wanting to operate in the space of civil service, by extension some public service, shouldn't be partisan. That's about it.
Okay. So I want to take you to page 16 of the Supreme Court ruling.
Please read.
Where it's even in quotes. It says that an effective civil service is essential to modern day democratic society, and a measure of neutrality is necessary in order to preserve the effectiveness. No civil servant must owe or be seen to owe appointments or promotion to partisan activity. Visible partisanship by civil servants would severely impair, if not destroy, the perception of neutrality. Do we need interpretation to this?
Let me also add this one. It says if you wish to broadcast, that's the word, manifest. If you wish to broadcast or otherwise manifest your political party allegiance or run political office, step away. It's very clear. It says step away for necessary services. Step away.
Yes, I agree. So who is this fellow?
So what I'm saying is that, in view of these pronouncements by the Supreme Court, do we still need some other procedures to ensure the implementation of these ruling?
In my opinion, I think there's some small lacuna somewhere there, because if, like I said, the head of civil service appointment is totally in the hands of the president, okay? And so if I'm the head of civil service and I am identifying Dr. Bampo to be appointed to birth and death registry, or I'm identifying you to be appointed into birth and death registry, is that sufficient enough to bar people from not abusing the supposed clarity that have been brought by the Supreme Court to bear on this? Because he's still appointing anyway. I'm the head of civil service, appointed by the president, and I have identified Dr. Bampo to be appointed to somewhere. What about that? So I'm trying to say that when it comes to implementation, we just came from this economic dialogue. I was there. Decisions have been taken. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty, the nuances of implementing the decisions that have been made, certain things ought to be done. When we went to Senchi and they came to implementation, I was one of the people appointed together with PV Obing and few people to ensure that, not PV Obing, because the late Kwesi Misata and few others, to prepare the implementation plan. So in enforcement of this one is enforcement. In enforcing this, still there will be some process to be undertaken. No matter what, every situation, anything you want to do, you still have to enforce. And in enforcing it, there might be a process to be triggered. The COSAC has a genuine point. Let me confirm. Has a genuine concern. They have raised it because their mandate is to protect the economic and social interests of their people. And it's enshrined in the Constitution, directive principle of state policy. So it's not an abuse, except that the enforcement must go in line with a certain process. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you very much. Viewers, I'm sure you are following and you are really enjoying the discussions as we discuss the role of labor unions in ensuring that the principles underpinning the civil service structure is protected. We'll take a commercial break and we'll be back soon. Please stay tuned. tuned. This is the 5th edition of Resetting the Civil Service Agenda. This morning, we find out the roles of the labor unions in ensuring that the principles underpinning the good governance of the civil service, the principles of anonymity, permanence, and neutrality are adhered to. At this juncture, I want to refer to the Executive Secretary of the CLOSAC and want to find out, yes, we've spoken much about ensuring that the civil service posts are maintained for civil servants. But all the laws, all the Supreme Court judgment we've gone through also bar civil servants from engaging in politics. How would we be able to ensure that civil servants who are publicly perceived to be wearing political lies either resign or are made to resign from the service?
Now, let me say this. We, as a labor union, as an association, have even written to government or our employer that we've realized that this collaboration is affecting our work. So even we ourselves, we have identified persons that it's clear they are colored. But as a union, we will not want purging. Let's do further investigations and call it a purge out of the system. We've written to them. This January, the letters are there. I can show you. So we are concerned. And like I said, our members have been dismissed. That's partial implementation. Our members have been dismissed for flouting this. And in the dismissal letters, they quote the Supreme Court ruling. In all the dismissal letters, they quote the Supreme Court ruling. Let's make it very clear. In everything, whatever the case, the end result could be dialogue. We are not afraid of dialogue. We know we have a very strong case. Even Austin Game, some years back, 1995, we had an issue with Austin Game. In one of our demonstrations, his car, he got out in the midst of our demonstration. And we straightened the car for him. He brought us a bill. And we told them, Austin, Chief, don't worry. We have Black PW. You bring the car again, we send it to PW. Then we'll do a nice job for you. But we became friends. He advises us to, if there's any issue that is agitating our mind, we call on him. So we're not afraid of dialogue. But come and dialogue in good faith. You can't tell us that you have reassigned the man, then less than 48 hours. It becomes a different thing. If you are going to dialogue, let's dialogue in good faith. And that's our position.
So Mr. Game, what do you perceive could be the role of labor unions in supporting regulatory bodies in ensuring adherence to the Supreme Court's ruling, as far as ensuring that members of the civil service do not dabble in politics?
There are two ways in doing this thing now. One of them is that in labor relations, because you have to maintain a very high degree of relationship between you and your employer, because you cannot be adversarial. Hence, in the law, we created the National Labour Commission. Hence, the selection of people who are to work in the Labour Commission was left open to both organized labor, employers, and government. And when you get to that Labour Commission, you are supposed to be completely impartial. That's how it's supposed to be. So I would urge, because when it comes to enforcement of these things and implementing these things, the triggering of this thing goes with the Labour Commission. Fortunately, I heard they've just nominated the two reps. And that's a good point also. When government, the past government, sent 2 people to Labour Commission. As soon as there's a change of government, the people themselves came out. So you cannot be there again, because we can't represent the interests of the nation. And so I heard they have nominated 2 people and sent them there now. Now it means the commission can sit. When it can, or you have to still go back to court. Or you will still have to go back to court. But all these things leads to nothing but adversarial relationship. And to avoid that, I'm happy he consistently and all of us talking about the need for dialogue, engagement. And the law is very clear as to how the process you must go through to have engagement. And so I'm for it. The only way out is go for engagement. You cannot put my hand at my back and then say, come and let's talk. It breaks the rule. So, yes, I agree.
Not also go for dialogue while you are still perpetrating the same thing.
So everybody hold it.
On hold.
You know, when your former chief labor officer, the one who just retired, Colette wanted, in fact, he engaged some of us with talk, and he wanted to implement an aspect of the law. Apparently, there's something in it. So the ministry here got a bit upset, and that triggered the problem. They ended up in court. I went to him and I said, my friend, stop what you are doing. You cannot do that. Please. Fortunately, Closer also stepped in. The head of civil service stepped in. And I went and sat in front of him and I said, withdraw this case from court because you don't have a case. The person is doing his work. You are creating problem. I don't want to come public and talk about it. Because we must help each other. This country is for us. So if we don't help and wrong thing is being perpetuated, then I don't care whether it's NDC, MPP or not. I don't care about that. It's about Ghana. So I think that I'm in agreement. If we can all stay put and agree that somebody should sit between the two of you, resolve the matter, within 2 hours, 3 hours, it should be resolved. I don't see it as a major problem.
I think currently what is obvious is that the implementation of the Supreme Court's ruling become a challenge. And we're looking at ways of ensuring adherence.
That's a challenge.
Possibly. Yeah. Would you recommend maybe the setting up of neutrality protection units? I mean, as part of the mechanisms of protecting, of enforcing or implementing the Supreme Court ruling?
Well, we already have it in place. In fact, if you heard the Chief Justice last week, Saturday, when she was opening our ADR program, she said she was going to recommend and also would like to encourage the use of private ADR people to assist in the resolution of some of the issues. And then 2, we have a Labour Commission already. They may not be versatile in it like some of us will do, but it's better off. Closer can engage Game, for instance, as an example. Labour Commission engage Game, can engage you, who has the capacity to assist them in navigating through the waters. They can do that. And once that is done, resolution is just a matter of course. We don't need to create a new nomenclature. It's already there. And there are several private people that can assist. In fact, let me give you an example. When it was becoming very rough between the Electoral Commission and the NDC group, even though I am perceived to be a sympathizer of NDC, I'm not a card-bearing member of NDC. Even though I'm a sympathizer, I offered to assist both parties, and both parties agreed. And in private, we did a lot of things that resolved some of the things which cannot be said in public. You know, the same way I have to meet the Peace Council privately and guided them as to what they should do, because they aren't, mediators per se. So I think that is very important that this matter is resolved amicably between the two parties. And I know which part of this law stand on now, and let's invite both parties and we sit down and we talk. It can be done. It's in the law.
So, Doc, in your opinion, what do you perceive has been the biggest challenge in achieving the neutrality of the civil service?
The biggest challenge, as you all are aware, has been political interference. That's the biggest challenge. As an association, when you look at why we went to court, the reliefs, what we were saying is that we also can politics, because we believed that based upon our training and retraining and our experience, we will do better. So what we told the court, that we think we should not be limited when it comes to partisan activities, because we have the capacity, we are better informed when it comes to government structures, and we think it will be good for the development of the country. But the Supreme Court said, no, you are a civil servant. You must be anonymous. You must not be seen. You must work behind the scenes. That's what they mean, anonymity. You work behind the scenes. Whatever bright ideas that you have, give it to the politician. Let him take the glory. It will be for the better of Mother Ghana. You should be there, permanent. Party come, party go. You are there, permanent. You are the institutional memory of the system. And that is why the principle underpinning the civil service, neutrality, anonymity, and permanence, we are the institutional memory. Now, look, you come and politically interfere. When they come, all the workshops, the programs, and they like the overseas traveling, they go, they come back, no report. After 4 years, another government comes. They go. So who is suffering? It's Mother Ghana. What we are fighting is for Mother Ghana. Not we individual, it's for Mother Ghana. Because Mother Ghana, because they take away all the laws, all those institutional memory are lost. So every 4 years we start again. It is Ababa. That's what's happening. Yes, that's the fact.
That's true.
Ababa. And this is what we want to control. And we ourselves, we told, look, government, look, this is the problem. Let's fix it. And we buy into your manifesto that let's reset the system. This is our small contribution that will add to your resetting agenda. Unless we are told that that resetting agenda has been abandoned. I know. This is our small way ensuring that we reset the economy.
Indeed, Mr. Host, indeed. You see the little retrogression of America right now by the partisan nature of their public service administration. They are in trouble right now as we speak, because all the people, of course, they have a system where you come in, you go out, which is good. But my friend Donald Trump has re-engineered it in a different way, and it's creating problem for them now. As of this morning, he's now going backward on some of the things he's trying to do, and so forth.
I think the Supreme Court is meeting.
Exactly. They have just ruled this morning, limiting and clipping his wings. I think we've gotten to a place where Ghana, we are only, I'm happy that at least the president is trying to do some moderation in his language. I saw the invitation of both former presidents who were at the venue yesterday when they were celebrating the Independence Day. I'm so happy. But I think that we've got into a place where the labor unions have a major role to play. Maybe to strengthen your hands the more. You are not saying this thing for yourself. I mean, we are human beings. You can die today and the closer will have to continue. So it's not about you. If you take Section 113 of the Labour Act, which sets up the National Tripartite Committee, if we go into the matter, assuming I was to be in your shoes, and I go with this matter the way you are going about it, and it's not even working the way I want it, I can go to the National Tripartite Body and ask that we sit down and talk. Because the law is very clear. 113 is the powerhouse of the organized labor. And for your information, Ghana is the only nation under the sun that has that in its labor law. That we have established a national tripartite committee that has tremendous power. They are not even making use of it. So all I want to say is that yes, the union has a point. The government may have a certain concern. Let's sit down and talk. Once we say it from we have a mutual understanding at the end of the day. And all this language I'm using, they are all part of the law. What I've just said is all in the law. And so they can always take advantage of it. Labor in particular can take advantage of it anytime and get the employer seated and we talk. And they cannot run away from it.
My producer is alerting me that we're running out of time.
Okay.
But before we draw the curtains down, if you have a government agenda, it's about resetting. You reset when you perceive something is not in its expected form and shape. How do you, in your last words, expect government to contribute towards the resetting of the civil service so that the civil service can play its supportive and service delivery role towards government, towards the nation, and towards the citizenry? Unbiased, in an unbiased manner, in an impartial manner, in a dedicated manner.
I don't know whether the office of the executive secretary sent someone to the National Economic Dialogue.
I was there myself.
Okay. Look, far-reaching decisions were made at the various committee levels and sent to the plenary session. And I'm sure today, tomorrow, they'll be able to put together things for implementation purposes because it will be in the budget. Now, the civil service and the public service administration have been given very huge attention. Particularly the private sector said openly that they cannot succeed without the civil and the public service. Openly. And I was quiet because I am also I worked before in the public service. So I want to say that they have identified, this government has identified that the civil service machinery, however it may look like, is the fulcrum around which they want to ensure that the 24th economy succeed. They said it openly. And I think it will be part of the parcel of document to be handed over to the president, whether today, tomorrow, I don't know. All I want to say is that they recognize the value of the civil and public service for that matter. Now it is incumbent on us as leaders of this noticeable body closer to also come to town and ensure that this resolution of matters of this nature and all other things, they play their part fully. They are doing their best, but there's more we can do. Everybody can do. I know a little, but I should know more.
Doc, I would want to have your final words. I believe that the union is not just being antagonistic. The union wants to or remains law-abiding and want to properly be positioned to support government in achieving its mandate. What are your final words?
Well, I would say as a union or an association, we prefer to an association. We've been very consistent for the past 8 years. We even put in place what we call the neutrality project. We made overtures to government. Now, this should not be the cry of only closer. Our employer, come, let's sensitize everyone about the importance of ensuring that the civil service is anonymous, is permanent, and neutral. For the past 5-6 years, we've been running the Nitankwa lectures to sensitize the public about the essence of the neutrality of the service. We are doing our part. We should have been protecting the interests of our members. That's our objective. We could have stopped there. But this should be a national agenda if we want to develop as a country. Letankwa of blessed memory, another Blobi, is stated that it is the perfection of the civil servant that will move this country forward. It's the retraining, resourcing the civil servant that will move this country forward. Letankwa worked with almost all governments through his lifetime. And all the governments, whether the chief or democracy, they found his services very useful. Chairman Warnings of blessed memory, they said, look, everywhere we went, one name stuck out. And that is one Nathan Anankwa. That if we are supposed to put the pieces together, get to that man. He is an embodiment of a civil servant. He is an embodiment of neutrality, anonymity, and permanence. So for us, this should not be only the cry of man. And what worries us, this should be even be taken up by the Public Services Commission. When you look at Article 196, 197, and I think that's why we have this problem. It calls for the Public Services Commission to come out with a constitutional instrument. I mentioned it at the forum. And this is why we are having these gaps. 32 years, Public Services Commission has not come out with anything. I don't believe it's the wisdom of the fairness of the Constitution that certain public corporations and institutions that their tenure should be the same as the president. No, that is not the spirit. It's the commission that determines the tenure. So this is where you have, if there's a government, you have certain public corporations needs. No, that is not the spirit of the Constitution. The tenure of those offices are determined by the Public Services Commission, and they are insulated. When you look at their conditions of service, they are insulated. They at 70 years, and they have the qualities or this of Supreme Court judges. But I don't know. They must get their acts together. That's right. They must look at Article 197. Where is the constitutional instrument? And that's where we should start from. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, it is the perfection of the civil service that will move this nation forward. At this stage of our democratic development, it is always crucial and necessary to establish and safeguard a high standard of neutrality and objectivity in governance and the delivery of public service, so as to foster and strengthen public confidence in the democratic process. This is where we bring the curtains down on today's production on establishing the role of labor unions in ensuring the adherence to the principle of neutrality, anonymity, and permanence. Let me thank my distinguished guest, Mr. Austin Gami of Gami and Associates. Once a political figure, a minister for labor and employment, and now an astute, what do you call it?
Labor and ADR consultant.
And PR consultant. He's done a lot towards the development of our industry. Sir, we thank you very much for coming.
He also contributed immensely to the promulgation of Act 651 of the Labor Law.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also want to thank Executive Secretary Dr. Bampo Ado for today being in the seat and sharing thoughts and opinions on the role of labor unions in safeguarding the interests of the civil service. Doc, you're welcome, and thank you very much for being here. We also want to thank the National Executive of CLOSAC, the rank and file of members of CLOSAC across the nation, the crew of Clock TV for this wonderful production. Until we meet again, this is a regular host, Sifas Nadusu, bringing you Resetting the Civil Service. Have a blessed day.